So, hello and welcome everyone. My name's Jamie, and I'm the Business Development Director here at Tribal Worldwide. So I help sort of lead the ideation and creation of any kind of strategies or propositions for any of the new clients considering to partner with Tribal. For those of you who haven't come across us before, we are Tribal Worldwide, and we're a total experience agency. And what we mean by that is we think beyond established customer experiences and work with brands to innovate in their customer journeys, whether that be from online to offline, out of home to in-store, as examples. But we also work with the internal engagement processes and procedures, and often partnering across both of these areas, both internally and externally with businesses. We create ecosystems that build better products, services, communications, but ultimately better businesses. So a bit of a story. So back in 2019, my team and I began hosting small physical roundtables. How novel, the time where you could actually go and see other human beings in person. And then 2020 hit, and we felt it was such a shame that all of the fantastic thought leadership that we'd been curating was going to disappear. So we very quickly pivoted to these online events, and what became clear to us was the voracious appetite for this sort of platform. And something we thought had been destroyed became so much more accessible to a wider audience, the likes of which we're seeing today. And these events sort of now help us bring together industry leaders from businesses of all shapes, sizes and locations to provide new points of view and learn from each other really on how we can adapt in the ever-changing landscape that we're all now working in today. So I'm really excited to bring you the first event of the year. It seems far too long since I grabbed a coffee and filled your screens for an hour, but to frame our webinar content in 2021, we went out to a large cross-section of businesses, and instead of telling them what they thought, what we thought they wanted to hear, we asked them. And what was clear and fairly obvious to most is that no matter what sector you're operating in, whether you're selling cars, clothes, or people's morning coffee, the acceleration of digital in the last 12 months has been hugely disruptive to consumers and businesses alike. Now, obviously, some were ahead of the curve anyway by the nature of their business, while others got lucky. But there's clearly still a lot of businesses playing catch up in this space. So we wanted to get you all asking yourself and your business the question, are your digital ecosystems ready? So just to discuss this today, we're very lucky to be joined by one of our very own clients, Nathan Still, the Digital Marketing Transformation at Skoda. Hello, Nathan. Nathan's got a wealth of experience working in marketing and digital arenas, both client and agency side, with a breadth of knowledge across multiple sectors, financial services, IT, leisure, FMCG. He's done it all, and he's passionate about using data and insight to drive efficiencies. And he's been at Skoda for the last 2.5 years, helping to develop their digital ecosystems and connected platforms. So yes, welcome, Nathan. And fresh off the press, Yasmin's first outing as the newest member of our executive board. Yasmin's our Chief Experience Officer, and for the past 18 years has been focused on experience, design, and innovation strategy. Yasmin sort of looks to problem solving for tomorrow and helping brands reinvent themselves in order to connect with customers and society in new and meaningful ways. So welcome, Yasmin. Thank you for your time today. And last but definitely not least, perhaps one of our more seasoned members of our executive committee, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, Andrew Lyles, our CTO. Andrew's accountable for the entire technology team here at Tribal and works closely with his team and our clients to architect and develop the foundations to implement, integrate, scale and maintain technical solutions. With 28 years, he really is one of our most experienced executive members, and works with Skoda, with Nathan, as well as a myriad of our other customers. So welcome all. Hello.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed.
Hey.
Whilst during that preamble, I can see that our numbers are sort of settling down now. So welcome all. For a bit of housekeeping, so we love these to be really interactive sessions. So as we're going through this today, any questions you might have, please submit to either directly to myself if you'd like it kept private. I won't name and shame you, or more publicly in the chat, and we'll try and address any kind of questions related to what we're discussing today as we go through it. So, welcome all. I'd like to start off really I feel like we've got a really interesting representation of different lenses on the world in the room today. And one of the things that we were discussing when preparing for this chat was what became clear was a digital ecosystem is very different to different stakeholders, different businesses, and indeed in different sectors. So I wanted to start off by getting kind of a bit of an introduction, but also a bit of kind of your point of view as to kind of what a digital ecosystem is in your world. And Yasmin, kind of wanted to come to you first, really, to sort of get your point of view as to kind of from a customer experience perspective, what should a digital ecosystem be? What should it deliver? What does it need to do?
Yeah, today customers, they just expect consistent, meaningful, connected brand experiences across all touch points, and that's both the digital and the human. And brands are recognizing, like more than ever before, that it's not only important to improve the end-to-end journey, but it's also important to better meet the customer's individual and immediate needs at any given moment. And because of this is why organizations are looking to their ecosystems, and they're looking to their ecosystems to, one, enhance their existing products and services, but they're also looking to ways that they can extend that value through creating with partners, with competitors, with other brands to create new relationships, and new relationships that better meet customers' like real-time changing needs. So this in the end creates, a digital ecosystem that benefits everyone, but in the essence, it provides customers with a very seamless and personal experience that really matters.
I think you're on mute, Jamie.
Jamie?
First webinar of the year. It was going to happen at some point, wasn't it? Nathan, your job now is to continue moderating me as the moderator.
I'll add some value somewhere. Yeah.
You're the moderator to the moderator, so thank you for that, Nathan. Thanks, Yasmin. There's some really interesting points there that I know we're going to circle back to as we kind of go through the chat today. So looking forward to that. And Andrew, from a technical perspective, tell us a little bit about sort of what digital ecosystems mean to you and your role, and to our clients, and what they need to deliver from a technical perspective.
Well, what I think of is a digital ecosystem is in my mind's eye, thinking about this is like the Matrix, lots of numbers coming down the screen. I only think about it really in terms of data and the challenges that what is implied by a digital ecosystem is that you want to merge the experience across what might have been separate silos of an organization or beyond the organization. And this is really inhibited if there is a poor data management across those interfaces. So if is often the case in larger mature businesses, different departments over time have created things that are kind of digital and then have thrust them onto the internet, but there's no way to join those things together. So that as I say, inhibits the ability to create a fantastic customer experience. And I myself, as a technologist, think myself merely as a slave to the customer experience, a slave to Yasmin, who says, really, we must do a lot better. We must be able to capture the customer's interest here and then make it really easy for them to glide across our services, never ever asking them to type something in twice, never asking them to fish around looking for things, but just take them directly to where we believe their next place should be. And this is pretty difficult if you've developed things in silos. And a lot of the challenges I see when talking to clients is that baggage that unfortunately they've inherited by having a team which was once upon responsible for, I don't know, the service of the organization, customer services, and they've moved to a model which has got their own database with their own stuff in it. And then you've got the sales team who's got their own CRM that manages possible new customers. You've got marketing who are even further away going, oh, should we do something over in Facebook? And none of these people can merge the data. And in order that we can reach the vision that Yasmin is talking about in terms of a sort of connected experience, it's all about data. And so I'm looking at tricks and techniques to jump those divides when it's sometimes quite not possible to bulldoze everything and join anything up. But there are some ways to do it, and maybe we'll get to talk about some of those.
I'll unmute myself. Well done, Andrew. Yeah, no, really interesting there. And I'd love to sort of talk more about technology enabling the vision of CX. And I think that's a really interesting area. And Nathan, as somebody that really, I think, sort of straddles both these areas, you have to take into account in your role both CX and technology. So talk to us a little bit about sort of your experience over especially the last sort of 12 to 18 months there at Skoda, and how, from your perspective, the importance of sort of a good digital ecosystem in your role.
Part of the problem is the fact that we call it a digital ecosystem, and when we're trying to connect all these different departments and all these different services, it's very easy to say, well, it's got the name digital in it, therefore it is the responsibility of the digital team. But what you're trying to connect is the whole customer experience and use that data and insight to inform that experience and to measure any sort of improvements and impact that that's having and highlight any issues. But really, it is the responsibility of all departments. Yes, the digital team can help implement a lot of this stuff and help guide some of that information. But across any organization, it is the responsibility of everyone. It isn't just, oh, that's the team that operate the website. When you're trying to create this end-to-end connected experience, everyone has to be involved in that and everyone has to be pulling in the same direction. And if you don't get that, it does create these sort of many layered activities and these little silos of expertise. So for me, it's about the whole organization taking responsibility for that ecosystem.
And Nathan, I think that's great that you say the word digital, because it's so true. It's an ecosystem we're talking about, and the ecosystem involves those digital touch points, those human touch points, and it's really nice, a really nice point.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Nathan. We started off there with completely unraveling the entire topic of the webinar, which I think let's see how that maps through. So, I think as sort of mentioned in my sort of preamble, there's clearly some industries and some sectors that are further ahead than others, and so I just wanted to sort of pose the question, really. Obviously, we've got some incredible experience across various different businesses and agency side and client side here. So just wanted to ask the question open to the panelists, really, as to kind of why we think sort of certain industry sectors and organisations are at different stages of this journey. Yasmin, I guess wanted to come to you on that first, to be honest.
I think one thing I think we all know, first of all, that's important is this cross kind of industry ecosystem is going to be the future of all industries. And those organizations with a more ecosystem mindset, what they do is they focus on adding value in new and different ways into a lot more people. And first and foremost, and of course, I say this for where I sit, but first and foremost, they start with the customer and they think about the customer differently. They think about the customer holistically. They're not only addressing the touch points in which they interact with those customers, they're also looking at the surrounding touch points and interactions. And so leveraging that customer data and insights to understand where are the greatest pain points that people are having and opportunities, and then looking to invest in those. And I think that, both we just spoke to this, both and Nathan and Andrew kind of spoke to this, but the key is to not let those insights really get stuck in the different organizational silos and the companies that do that. So if it gets stuck within sales or it gets stuck in with customer service and it doesn't go across, then the insights aren't being shared and they're not being linked to give that more holistic view. And the other thing that I think is also important is that the organizations that empathize and create solutions, not just for customers, but also for their employees, they just create more value and create more authentic experiences across their ecosystem. And I'll just give a quick example, but if you look at something like Uber's first focus was their rider and building that trust with them. Then they went to put their attention on drivers and with the drivers, making them active participants within the experience. And once that part of the experience was established, they then went and leveraged the wider network of all these people moving around the city and created Uber Eats, Uber Pool, Jump. I can't even, remember all of what they're creating, but they're creating these unique offerings, which then extends their ecosystem.
Mm.
When you were talking about Uber, it makes me think, well, they got it easy, right? Because they start from a greenfield site. They could choose what they to do everything correctly. There are plenty of organizations who are lagging because they're mature or older businesses. And, if the question is why are certain sectors at different stages, is because they are old or young businesses. I think one of the sectors that is most lagging that we find is pharmaceuticals and their relationship with healthcare professionals. They have basically quite an atrocious customer or healthcare professional experience in the digital space, because they've so long been able to rely on the interpersonal relationships of going to see a clinician in their workplace, for example, and never having to bother about the digital space. But exactly the same is mirrored in some parts of B2B insurance where we've been working with, really shocking digital experiences. And what's driving the change is that it's our normal home life. We're so used to having very well connected, gorgeous experiences from the big tech companies like Apple and Amazon. Whatever you might think about them as being great robbers of the tax systems in your country, whatever. The fact is they do create amazingly well connected services, and everybody knows this, and everyone's personal expectations is this. And so that is what is driving brands. There's no excuse for, let's say, healthcare professionals to be dealt with a really poor experience, because they know it can be better. Manifestly in their hand is a beautiful device with great experience that connects everything. So you've got to do better. So it all comes back to that sort of history for me. I could think of talking to a company that sells wine, and they've got an ancient selling mechanism over here. And then they thought, we put something online to help our members discuss wine. So they go off and buy or you not even buy, get for free, some sort of forum software. And now you've got people talking in a different technology system about their products. This is a sort of great marriage of information there. People, talking up your products here, and you've got a selling platform here, but they're not connected. What a lost opportunity. So this is where you need some advice from technical people. How could you join that together and really, really come and use all of that data?
Absolutely. And before I carry on, just because there's been a few other people joined since the initial introduction, as I say, any questions that might arise through some of this fantastic conversation we've got going here, please send any questions directly to me, or just pop them in the chat. We'll try and get your questions answered as we go through this. Nathan, just coming to you there, because we've just been talking there, obviously, about sort of our opinion as to why some sectors, some businesses are ahead of others, etc. I think the automotive space is really interesting here right now. I mean, one could argue over the last 12 months, as showrooms have been closed, etc. A lot of automotive businesses have had to pivot and diversify and come up with new ways to continue to help people buy cars. And as I mentioned as well, there are other businesses in your space that some were very fortuitous to market, like Kazoo, great timing to market, and are disruptors in your industry, whereas sort of others have had to sort of move into this. So tell us a little bit about your opinion in that automotive space, and kind of your experience of having to sort of accelerate this customer experience for today's market.
Yeah, I think both Andrew and Yasmin both sort of touched on a lot of it. Some of the reasons why we have been a bit slower is being digital isn't necessarily our core business. We make cars, and so a lot of these tech companies, that's what they do. That's their bread and butter. So we're having to learn this, and I've been sort of quite a few seminars and presentations where people always hold up the Facebooks and the Amazons giving the best customer experience, but they've started off doing that. So it's quite a brave organisation to say, take all their legacy systems and go, let's try and fix it and spend lots of money fixing it, or just forget it, leave it all to one side and start something new. I think what lockdown's done for us is it's definitely changed the way people interact with us. I think, and as people's own personal experiences have changed, you're seeing your friends, you're having quizzes every Thursday night. I'm sure we've all got a bit of quiz fatigue, and you're having to, you can't speak to your friends, you just video call. So video calls have now become more and more important. And we were quite fortunate. We have like virtual showrooms, and a lot of our retailers are set up to offer that. But the uptake wasn't particularly high. What we have seen is that uptake has really improved now. So people, rather than requesting a test drive, are requesting a live demo. And fortunately, we had those in place, but the proportion of actions that people are certainly taking on our site has changed quite a lot. And we've had to try and address that and manage people's expectations as well.
Interesting. And I guess sort of when we, when we're looking at sort of creating kind of new customer journeys or new customer experiences, I know that Nathan, you were saying that the test drive was the ultimate goal, in your customer journey before, right? Getting someone in the car and getting them to test drive it. And you were saying the other day about how that's sort of not necessarily changed. You still want to get them to that point in the customer journey. It's just the way you got to get them there is different, right?
I think with the various sort of changes in sort of lockdown limitations, we've kind of gone from no one's allowed to visit our retailers apart from servicing to yes, they can go and maybe have an unaccompanied test drive or an accompanied test drive to no, they can't go again, and it's varied from region to region. So that's been really quite difficult. I mean, for us, Skoda as a brand, the proof of the pudding is always in the driving of our cars. I think the perception of the brand has changed quite a lot, and we make some fantastic cars. So to get someone into them is the real deal clincher. So it still is very, very important for us, but we're really struggling at the moment. Right now, people can't go on test drives. So we just have to try and rely on people getting a good perception of the car through those online and virtual experiences. Obviously, as soon as we can get them back into the cars, that's one of the first things we will be doing.
Absolutely.
But it could be that part of this, this video call becomes another step in what used to be submit an inquiry, arrange a test drive and go, but actually have the video call first. It's similar in like online dating. There was lots of, rather than going to meet someone, actually you then go and arrange to have a video chat with someone. And maybe that becomes the next step rather than going straight into it. So I don't think it will disappear. I just think people's expectations and the experience has changed a bit.
I agree with you on that. And there's so many more people who know how to what Zoom is and how to operate it. My parents wouldn't have known what to do. Now they do, and so surely it can come into the normal way of interacting in business to consumers, I think.
Absolutely. So I think when we're looking at creating really great customer experiences, one of the sort of topics that comes up time and time again, and is I think becoming a really overused term especially in marketing, is that dreaded P word, personalisation. And Yasmin, I think you've got some really interesting thoughts kind of around this, haven't you? Around kind of providing a kind of a seamless, personalised experience, but how maybe it's not necessarily how everyone envisages it, right?
Yeah, and it's whether it's your workout app or your Audible or your Spotify, or every brand is just sending us personalized content, every day. So customers are just getting it fed. And I think, there's a really good point that Nathan brought up with, 2020 and last year, and how it's kind of accelerated this hyper personalization and hyper responsiveness with everything going online, and customers' behavior shifting quite drastically, and e-commerce really, exploding. And so the old rule book doesn't really work anymore. We just need to kind of transform the way that we communicate with customers. So that's really what's key, is that in the past, we reacted to what they've done before. And, now it's more about predicting what they want to do next, what might complement their life experiences or actions or even emotions. not only did last year show kind of these expectations and stuff's changing, but even technology is just getting better at kind of recognizing us as well and recognizing different things. But this really entails empathy. And I know I mentioned it before, but it really entails like empathy and building a relationship with customers and getting to not only know them better and understanding them, but also adapting to their just changing real-time needs. And not just their needs, but their preferences, their circumstance. And so in essence, it's about creating more intelligent and real-time customer journeys that are tailored based on their needs at any given moment.
Mm. And Andrew, sort of, previously we talked about how technology could deliver against the vision of CX. When it comes to personalization, I know that the starting point has to be, you're starting from a good point of data, but what's been your experience of driving kind of really personalized customer experiences and getting the tech to enable that for our clients?
Yeah. So here's something that you don't have to boil the ocean to get it right. The temptation is to go, I know we need a single customer view project. And boy, have I seen as many of those projects as many as I have worked with large companies. Everyone's got a huge project sitting over there in the distance, trying to assimilate all the data into a data lake, they were started to call them data warehouses. They've even renamed that a data lake now because these projects haven't finished. These are the projects that never, ever deliver anything. It must be so frustrating to be told about this vision and then it never coming through. So what I'd be inclined to do is just let those people do that and try and get on with something much more practical. So here's the sort of things that we're doing. You can start off with really small personalization by doing A/B testing, just to try out whether this works, or that's going to improve your website. Is it better to lay out the content this way or have this kind of content versus that? You can try that out. That's not really personalization, but the tools you use to deliver that are very close to the sort of tools you could use to implement personalization on top of whatever else you've got. So if you imagine the technology that works that, the way it happens is the page loads and goes, you're in the sort of test segment, quickly replace that content with something else. The same mechanism can be used to deliver different content based on the user who is at the screen. And when I say user, we don't need to know who they are. We just need to know something about what their intentions might be. And we're using technology at the moment where it will monitor what you look at across a website and sort of build a history. Still, we don't know who they are. We don't even care who they are. Don't want to know. You're never going to get things like their demographic and all those kind of things. But if you can spot that they take this particular journey, they look at these products and then go and ask a question, they look at those products and then route back and then put that into their basket, then perhaps you can anticipate when someone else starts on what looks like the same trajectory that they will end up buying that thing or going down and looking for that piece of information. So you could offer it earlier in the journey. And the way that we are able to do this is through machine learning, where a machine watches, gathers all those paths and then learns about the behaviors. And then when it sees somebody else exhibiting similar behavior, that's when it can offer like a quick route to that end path or whatever. Remember, we don't need to know who they are. So this is quite a different way to personalize compared with what we were doing a few years ago, where we were segmenting. You'd ask somebody who'd really key into demographics. Okay, so what are our customer groups and how do we partition them? Right, we come up with 4 groups. We put our people, right, we will send these people down that route, those people down that route. No, you don't have to plan it, anything like that. You can use the machine learning to derive this for you automatically. So they're not core segments. There are fine segments. In fact, they are entirely personal. There could be a segment just for you because that's how the machine can learn. It can do vastly more computations than we could ever do. So this is what's really exciting, I think, in the field of personalization. You can